Hello and welcome. So, we are once again looking into Solve and the gameplay and some of the. Specifically in this video, we're going to be looking at stats and how they interact with each other and what they mean. So, hopefully, that will help you all have a better understanding of the game and allow you to size up different units and work out who's going to have the advantage in combats and such. So, I'm getting most of my data here from the Solve website. You can get this through the game. There's a link to all the rules. It's not super detailed, but it's got the core there. Some of it is a little outdated, but it is pretty solid. Um, okay, and now we're going to get straight into it. So this is the Solve unit stats and types tab, which has a lot of the details on it. I've got here an example of a unit. So Dwarf Handgunners, pretty average overall on what you'll expect to see in the game. So skill 3, power 3, defense 3 or 4 is probably the average. Attacks 1 is average. 1 wound and discipline 7 or 8 is probably the average. So I'm going to go through these stats. There is a brief description down here, but I will go through the stats and I shall explain how they interact and what they actually mean in a little more detail. So let's start on the left. Start with skill. So there's two things that this is used for. This is used for both ranged and close combat. So for ranged attacks, without any modifiers, because there are other modifiers, a skill 3 unit will hit on a 4 plus. And so if you're skill 4, you hit on a 3 plus. If you're skill 5 or 6, you'll hit on a 2 plus from ranged. And skill 2 will hit on a 5 plus. Now this can be altered. There's a couple of really common things that mess with this are long range, which is over half the range of your weapon, which affects pretty much most weapons anyway. It's not all, and cover. So cover is when an opposition is sat inside a wood or is carrying the banner of mist, which you see sometimes, but not very often. So that's how it's used for ranged. Now in close combat, you compare the units' skill to each other. So, and whoever's highest will hit on a 3 plus. As simple as that. So if you're equal, you'll both hit on a 4. If one is higher than the other, the higher one will hit on a 3, and the lower one will hit on a 4. So it's a good. I mean, it's very good to have a decent skill, but it has like fewer dividends the higher you go up the skill level. So if you are skill 6 on a champion that you've decked out, you will hit a skill 2 player on a 3. So it's no better than being skill 3 really. But so there's a few like key uh, jumps which are good. So being skill 4 is good. Uh, because like a lot of things are skill 3. So being skill 4 is like maximum bang for buck, as it were. Okay, so next we will look at power and defense. Now these are intrinsically linked, so we're going to cover them together. So power describes physical hitting power, and the defense describes how tough and the armor something is wearing. So when you are playing someone and you score a number of hits either from ranged or in combat, your hits will have a certain power. So, for instance, this handgunner, if it's fighting another unit of handgunners, it would be hitting on its power 3 against its defense 4. Um, and so you compare this number. Now, there's a very useful table that describes this. I got this from Trouble on the forums, actually. So I don't know where it originates, but that's where I've got it from. And so here it is. And it will compare your power to your defense. And basically, at the end of comparing these two, the defender will roll a dice to try and save the wound that's been hit him. Uh, and so the bigger the difference, uh, the so if your defense is higher, you get a better save. If your defense is lower, you get a worse save. But the rule of thumb is if you're the same, it's a 4 plus. So that's right down the middle there. If you've got one or two above the others, so if you're one or two power above, you get they get a worse save. If you're one or two defense above, you get a better save on the 5 and 3 plus. And then if you're 3 or more different, you get a 2 plus or a 6 plus. So that's how those two interact. Hopefully that is clear. Uh, then very simply, we're on to attacks. It's the number of attacks your person has in combat. Um, Infantry is generally 1, monstrous infantry 3, but it does vary from profile to profile a bit. And then we have wounds, which is how many wounds it takes to remove one base of your type. So, standard infantry 1, monsters go all the way up to 8. And then finally, discipline. Discipline is if you are defeated in combat, you will roll a discipline check. You will minus however many you're defeated by. So say you've lost a combat really closely, he's done just one more wound than you. You will roll a discipline check, and you will be at -1. Um, so if it was this unit, discipline 8, -1, you need to roll a 7 or under on 2 dice. So 7 is average to hold. Well, you're slightly above average to hold, but if you're lower than that, it's real risky. And if it's higher than that, you should be more secure. But honestly, it's something everybody can fail. Like, it really is. So don't rely on units holding. It can be real dicey. There is another way that this interacts with your units, and that is with its rank bonus. So the more ranks you have in a unit, the better its discipline becomes, which makes sense. So if you have a dwarf handgunner unit with 3 full ranks, and then you lose a combat without losing too many bodies to lose ranks, you will actually be +3, so you'll be on discipline 11. So it can be very useful to help people hold. A full rank is, well, not a full rank. A rank counts as long as it's over half full. So yeah, get the rank bonus as long as the model is half full. Yeah, okay. And now we're going to talk about a stat which I think should be on the profile, but is hidden, and that is movement. So we have here the different types of units and how far they can move. There are few modifiers of -1s you can get on these, but generally these are pretty stable. So here you go. You got infantry is 8, and these are inches, but like it's more important how they compare to each other. It's cavalry 16, monstrous and large monsters 12, chariots also 16, same as cav, and then war machines 6, as long as then, but they have to use an ability to move because it's a move or shoot with war machines. So the pivot cost as well. So basically, it's in a proportion of your movement. It scales exactly with the movement allowance. But basically, yeah, if you turn 90 degrees, it'll cost a quarter of your movement, is the way to think about it. And if you turn 180, it'll take half. So if your movement 8 and you pivot 180 because you want to run away from something, you will only be able to move 4 directly away from where you originally pointed. Which means that things with larger movements lose more of their movement when they're pivoting, which I like. I think it's really good. It just stops people just running away constantly and cavalry lists just being impossible to catch. So I like this. But yeah, okay. So that is the stat line and how they work. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about equipment. There are a few common ones. There's a few rarer ones which I don't think are on here, but most of them are here, so we'll touch on them. So you can have weapons. Pretty commonly, they will add defense or power or and like charge bonuses are a common thing. So great weapon, lance, and hand weapon, shield, or hand weapons on their own add one power when you charge. There are some innate constant, so anything that's got a shield will add one defense. Um, the but yeah, and two hand weapons add one attack. The other weirder one is halberds, which basically ignore your opponent's. Well, if your opponent's defense is really high and your strength is low, and so they would be saving on say a 2 or 3 plus, it automatically becomes a 4 plus. If your strength is higher than their defense, you still get to wound. They still have to roll bad saves, but yeah. So but yeah, as it says here, damage against these weapons are never better than a 4 plus. It's really good skill for taking off your really tough enemy units. So yeah. Now we'll go to the different range. These are the common ranged attacks. It's not the war machines. The war machines are um, generally very long range, but if you mouse over them on a unit profile, it will show you what they are. So, but yeah, so you got a bit of variety in range and power, and then finally you have general properties, so things like armor, which again is this way you get the movement effect. So sturdy as well, get -1 movement, but you don't suffer heavy armor, so those don't stack. And yeah, but yeah, just mouse over these and they will show you what they do. I'll give you a quick example because I can pop into a unit faction. So let's look at a Empire captain. So here he is. There's his stat line. But if you mouse over what they are, and you can do this in game, it will tell you what what the skill does. And so there you go. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope this has been helpful and helps you look at the units and know what they do and know when you get into a combat what you're going to be hitting on and saving on and things like that. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, best of luck out there, and I shall see you on the ladder.